The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies and Geek Nation Tours, and also by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you one and all for your support. It is hugely appreciated. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 199, Dungeon Saga Review, with hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs, Mike Whitaker, and Dave Luff. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. My name is Neil Shuck, and on this particular show I am joined by the man with or without the cake. It's Mr. Whitaker. Hello, sir.
Just a cup of tea at the moment.
Just a cup of tea. Oh, mind you, from what photographic evidence I've seen, since neither of us were at Hammerhead at the weekend, we missed the cake because Mervyn had to go back to East England with it.
No!
Disaster.
I'm speechless, mate. Speechless.
Indeed. And as well, we are joined by the Luffmeister himself. Hello, Dave.
Hello, chaps.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this week we are wizardless, as he's visiting the Frozen North.
He's visiting that interesting museum in Reykjavik, isn't he?
The one you told him to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget to ask him all about it next week. Yeah.
But that said, by the miracle of the internet, he might be on later.
Indeed he may, yes. Indeed he may. Yes, because, this show is a bit wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, all will be revealed later, but yes. Yeah, by the magic of the internet, Mr. Hobbs will be on later, but he's not on at the moment. So, we have a slightly different program for you tonight, in the fact of we haven't got an interview. Shocking indeed, horror. Yeah, yes, we're going back to our roots, and we're doing a game review this on this show.
In fact, you could argue it's a board game review.
Indeed. Well, it's certainly a board game with miniatures. So yes, we're going back to doing a game review, which is something we were hoping to do a lot more of this year, and then somebody got a little bit over enthusiastic on booking interviews, and so that hasn't quite worked out exactly the way I thought it was going to.
I'm suddenly having a Blues Brothers moment. We all got two kinds of reviews.
Indeed. Yes, so we have a game review coming up for you later. But first, we are going to delve into the past 7 days, and we're going to catch up with what we've been doing in the last week. So we'll take a quick break, have a word from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll catch up with everything we've been doing.
The eagles have gone. Britain lies defenseless in a cruel world. Since the birth of our Lord, it has been 456 years. What sins have we committed to bring this punishment to Britain? I speak, of course, of the Saxons. They came as allies, but now they seek conquest. The lands of the Britons lie ravaged before them. Blood runs red in our island. We need a leader to stand against them. We need a man to bring together the Britons in common cause. We seek a Dux Britanniarum.
Right, that's enough of that. Dux Britanniarum from Two Fat Lardies. They really are very good.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all. And we're back. So, has it been a busy week, gentlemen?
Yeah.
It has. Oh, well, if it's been busy for you, you go first then. What's...
Oops.
You fell into my cunning plan.
Curse you, Red Baron. So, didn't get to go to Hammerhead. Was slightly disappointed about that. The minion I sent to find something failed.
Oh.
Floggings will be later, and I'll just say sod it and 3D print one. I was after a P40 Kitty Hawk.
Oh, right, okay.
For reasons which will become apparent in about 2 minutes' time. But nobody seemed to have one, so it appears there is a 3D model for it on Thingiverse. In fact, several. I shall print it and paint it and find a flight stand for it, and life will be good. I did get to go to the Peter and Model show the following day.
Oh yes, I saw. I saw some tweets for you from that.
Yes, the chaps, the jolly Graham Middleton, who's the usual perpetrator of these things at our club when it's not me, and Gary and Dan had basically put on I think the kindest way to describe it, and I don't mean any ill will at all by this because it worked really well, was bolt action light. Called the Tiger when the day the Tiger came for tea, which basically consisted of a very densely populated 28mm town on the deep cut cobbled streets mat, which looked really, really, really pretty. Basically was completely full of PMC hovels and Empires at War 28mm buildings. One Corgi Tiger, Mr. Whitman, and 3 Shermans, 3 Cromwells. Mission being to do a Whitman on the Cromwells and the Shermans.
Oh, right, okay.
Apparently, he succeeded once out of, I think, 4 or 5 games we played during the day. Got a lot of interest, partly because, as if you saw the photos, it was a really quite spectacular looking table.
It was very nice. It was very nice.
And I should, at this point, actually hat tip to Mick Wilson of Empires at War, that's empiresatwar.co.uk, who provided some of the buildings for the club. As in, we sent him a nice order. I mentioned them a couple of episodes ago. They're basically MDF pre-paints, like foreground, but not in that they don't look like the foreground ones. And they're a lot more muted. They don't stand out quite as garishly as I think some of the foreground ones do. And they really look the part. And he's a thoroughly nice bloke. We had a problem with one of the buildings because he's in a process of continuous improvement of some of his designs, and one of the things he's planning is that some of the houses will be able to have gardens. And to do that, he needed to modify one of his designs so that the building actually had a back door.
Right.
And we got a bit of a mix of version 1 and version 2 of one of the buildings. So I dropped him a note via Rob, who at the club, who was doing the assembly with a photograph, got on it, mail back almost immediately saying, "Oops, really sorry, here's why. I'll send you one in the post tomorrow." And it arrived yesterday. Pretty much there and then.
Cool.
So, hat tip, full marks for customer service. They're really nice buildings. They're cheaper than foreground. If you're into 28mm West of Europe, I commend them to you. And I do hear rumours he was doing some test prints in a scale that you and I might be interested in as well.
Ooh.
and was muttering about doing both. He does some beautiful, absolutely, I cannot use the adjective enough, MDF Spanish buildings, including a villa and a monastery, which is freaking huge.
That's oh dear.
Yeah. If you were to go onto empires@war.co.uk and look at the 28mm Spanish, check out. I'm going to make you do it now. Check out the monastery.
There was a suggestion that you might be doing that in a slightly
there
scale.
are mutterings that certain things. He's started test prints in 15. I've also said, please do Italian campaign because I can't get enough Italian buildings. And he said, as soon as he's figured out how to do the Pantile roofs, which he's working on, probably just doing it the same way Charlie Foxtrot has, which is to resin cast them.
Have you seen Najelwitz's Italian range?
Oh, no, have they started doing an Italian range?
Yeah, they do an Italian range in 15mm. They started it last year.
They do. I'm going to cry now. Oh, God, they do, don't they?
They do. They're nice.
Oh, they do. Oh, dear. Oh, oops. Ow, 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 my credit card. Ow! Oh, that sort of looks the part, doesn't it? Oh, I say.
Yeah, they are. They're nice.
Oh, they're a bit nice. You could stick those in an Italian town without too much. Oh, that's a bit horribly out of focus. That's a photo of somebody's finger.
Yeah. It has to be said. A couple of the odd photo on Najelwitz's site leaves a little bit to be desired, but
their only problem is that there isn't any lift-off internal floors in the Najelwitz ones.
Ah.
And there's a bit of a lip on the tiled because of the vac-form nature of the things. Bit of a lip on the tiled roofs, if you look.
Yes.
But apart from that, thank you so much, Neil.
Obviously, always here to help, you know. But
my money.
If Empires of War are going to do 15mm,
you and I are going to be poor.
We are kind of starting to discuss 15mm shot practice and potentially doing more than one theatre, aren't we, Mr. Love? Potentially.
Yeah.
Staying with the theme of Italy, then.
Go on then.
Ran the first
You bought an
game...
ice cream!
Yes, my son delivered me one earlier for dessert, but it was a Magnum, which is Roman, not Italian. So I suppose we're a bit details.
Hang on. Sorry, Roman, not Italian. Can you please explain?
Well, if you were to say to the Romans whether they were Roman or Italian, I'm sure they would tell you they were Roman.
Okay, fair enough.
And if you look in army lists, the Italians are usually in ancient, so usually a completely different army list to the Romans, aren't they?
Yes,
Uncle Mike.
Pedants are us. I don't know.
Pedants are us. Anyway, so we've started the Club I Ain't Been Shotman campaign, which has gone through 3 incarnations. It started out being Blennerville or Bust, which is Bob Avery's really rather nice campaign book. And then I decided that I probably needed to build slightly more terrain for that than... Basically, we've been waiting so flipping long for this campaign, I wanted to get something done. So we moved on to looking at the possibility of doing 29 Let's Go large, which is the I Ain't Been Shotman variant of 29 Let's Go, which is the largest pint-sized campaign. And I looked at it and I thought I could. And then I thought, you know what? Let's just do something fictitious set in Italy because I'm enjoying Italy. So we started off the Valle della Maria campaign, the Valley of the Marias, on Monday, which was basically the British trying to take a couple of small towns from the Germans, and it went very, very well, although we ran out of time, which is annoying. I have things in place to try and ensure we don't next time, including possibly one of the most classic assaults on a building I've ever seen in I Ain't Been Shotman. Platoon against the section in the building, first two sections fired, couple of shock, couple of kills, and a pin. And in went the third section, and out went the section in the building. Classic.
Oh, cool.
Just, exactly how you'd want it to happen according to the drill manual. So it was quite an interesting scenario. Ended up with the British holding one of the villages, the Germans popping a tiger out of ambush and doing tigerish things to 3 Shermans, which was ugly, if you were the Shermans. Either that tiger is probably going to be a junior ace for the next scenario. And we're doing a sort of at the sharp end-ish campaign thing each time, which is producing some quite interesting results. in which the Germans got the nod of approval from their CO because they stopped the British from taking both villages, but the men are slightly upset because the section that was in the first village, the platoon in the first village, got completely mullered. And conversely, the British men are happy because they didn't take many casualties, but the British CO is a bit, that wasn't what you were meant to do. And besides, you off our tank supports by getting 3 of their tanks killed.
As you do.
Yeah. Otherwise, done a bit of shopping, pledged for the latest of the Printable Scenery Kickstarters, which is some more Western Europe buildings and a very nice-looking castle. I picked up a Flames of War wrecked Sherman objective marker for reasons which, after what I've just said, should be perfectly obvious.
Yes.
What else? Oh, I picked up some super glue and some PVA at the Peterborough Model Show, and I have unblistered and assembled a Flames of War Ferdinand and a Brombar, except for the Scherzen, and if I ever find the person who designed that kit, I will kill them. It's a resin body. Okay, so you've got the usual hybrid kit problem.
Yes.
It's a resin body, metal tracks, metal gun, metal hatches, plastic Scherzen. And the Scherzen are meant to hang on by 4 tiny attachment points on the side of the hull. And it is pretty much impossible to get the 4th of the attachment points off the sprue without breaking it. So my current intent is to fix it with the attachment points, plus probably a pin hidden behind the shirts, and there's another attachment point that's not actually in line with the other 3. So that was making me slightly grumpy. And I built a plastic soldier company Churchill Mark V close spot, which the British then declined to use.
Oh.
They appeared to have a bit of an attack of shiny bloody itis when it came to the sport. Oh, we haven't tried that before. Let's try one of those.
Oh, I was supposed to take the sensible option.
Yeah, I was supposed to take the sensible option. I mean, they had enough points to effectively take 5 Shermans and a 4 or 5 Shermans and a Firefly.
Yeah.
And they wound up taking 2 Shermans, a Firefly, 2 pre-game stonks, an artillery barrage, and an airstrike.
Oh, hence why you wanted the Kitty Hawk.
Hence why I wanted the Kitty Hawk, yeah. I think they'd have been better off with more tanks, basically.
Yes.
They might have actually stood a chance against the Tiger, and they'd also probably been an awful lot better off the tank if they'd been a little more profligate with their use of smoke. But apart from that, it was a really, really good scenario. I think everybody enjoyed it. We learnt a few things for next time. I've just knocked together, after some player comments, it's not really a quick reference sheet. It's more a prompt card for I Ain't Being Shot Mum, in that it's got images of the half dozen most common cards. So platoon activates, big man activates, armor activates, foo, artillery support, and what your options are with each card. Because I've found that once the players get that bit internalized, it's not so much a problem if they say, okay, I'm now doing this. This is slightly more obscure. Tell me what I need to do. But they feel a lot more comfortable if they can do the basics without me having to umpire absolutely everything. So those are available for download off my Dropbox. See my blog tomorrow, or my Twitter, or the Lardy's mailing list. So it's been quite a busy week, and I blogged.
You blogged?
There's a battle report up.
Wow.
But I was having so much fun, I only took 1 photo.
Yeah, a battle report without not too many photos. Yes, okay.
No, just the one. Oh, and I picked up some very nice little small 15mm MDF ruins from a chap on eBay. They're nothing much. You know, they're just a little typical sort of couple of corner walls.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and a few things that have actually got an internal first floor. But the nice thing about those is because they're not complete buildings, you can pretty much pass them off as pretty much, you know, whatever period and region you like within reason. So they're actually quite nice. They are a chap called John Edward Banks, or Banks John Edwards is his eBay trade name, and he does quite a lot of little MDs. He's one of these people who has a laser cutter and a working brain, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And an idea of things he can do with it. And he's nice, friendly, does nice stuff. And for this kind of thing, it's brilliant. So, yeah. Anyway, that's me.
Cool. Crikey, that's almost as long as I normally go on for.
Well, at the point, it's almost as long as Hobbsy normally goes on for.
How about you, Mr. Luff?
Me? Well, in preparation to Kenneth's Heroes, started doing the British infantry for that. Got them all base painted and got them all mounted on pennies. Found some interesting new glue, which is no big frills. It's Loctite. Oh, crikey. I can't remember what it's called now. It's in a 20mm tube, 20-gram tube. Oh, dear. It's in a black bottle as well. I'm going to have to go and get it, aren't I?
You can't just leave us. I found new glue and then can't tell us what it is.
I know. You know what? I thought I knew what it was called, and now the name totally escapes me.
I've been using the Powerflex, which is the gel glue that comes in a 3-gram.
Yes, the
thing.
It's the one with that has the squeezable top bit. Yeah. The
two things I found, that and the brush on stuff, are fabulous. Brush on super glue is really, really useful. If you can be precise with it, it's one of the best ways of putting together MDF buildings on the planet. Certainly better than PVA. I feel a Goon Show moment coming on.
Yeah, right. Where's the edit point?
There wasn't one. Keep going.
Right. It's called Loctite 60-second all-purpose glue. I'd run out of glue. I quite often usually use Aerodite for a lot of stuff.
Not that we're wanting to use any sort of overkill here, but
yeah. Serious sticking power that has. But I haven't got anything else, so I've run out. So on my trip around the village, doing my sort of weekly chores, going to the bank and dropping off checks and things, I just nipped into Asda and found this for £3 a chuck. And it says it's an all-purpose glue, and it sticks everything to just about anything. So metal to plastic, and plastic to metal, and wood to metal. Everything.
Might actually be one of the things that I actually stick one of these blooming hybrid vehicles together.
Yeah, well, it's in a black and red tube, and it's 20 grams of it, and
£3.
It was good stuff. It's probably going to be able to stick quite a lot of armies on bases. That is, good performance. Anyway,
save using that to basically just to stick Plastic Soldier Company, Plastic British Infantry to pennies.
Penny shapes, yes.
Yes, of course. Sorry, yes. Penny-shaped discs. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Not suitable for bonding polypropylene, polyethylene, polytetrafluoroethylene, Teflon, silicone rubber, glass, or foams. I think that means it's probably safe for polystyrene, which is the important thing, isn't it?
Yes. So that's pretty. It's pretty good stuff. And sprayed them up, and they're all base coated now. And then I spent some money as well yesterday.
I'm sorry.
I spent some money.
Excuse me. Can I just check? Who are you and what are you doing with Mr. Luff?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know quite what happened, but I was looking at these figures and thought, you know what? I want something to make it easier. I just wanted something to make it a little bit easier. So I bought one of these snazzy, eyeglass head enlargement thingy jobbies that you mount on your head so you can see things better.
Oh, you mean like I've got these Optivisors?
Yes, it's not an Optivisor though, because Optivisor's a brand name, isn't it? This is like a sort of I don't know what it is, but it's quite snazzy. It's called now they were on Amazon and there was 4 of them last night, and since I bought it, there is none left. So it's called a Yoocta Sun eyeglass bracketed headband magnifier with LED lights, no less, and it's the upgraded version.
It's got lights.
It's got lights. It's got 2 white LED lights actually, which work quite well on miniatures. They're very good. I'm really pleased actually, just how good it was, because those optical versions, they're about £50 a chuck. They are, and that's just like with one lens, and that was about the best price I could find, to be honest, Neil. And I just saw this and thought, yeah, this looks quite good actually. It seems evidently they did two versions at one point. One at one point, because it's got a point that balances on the bridge, rests across the bridge of your nose, I suppose, like glasses. And some people were saying that it was probably wasn't well padded or anything. So there was a new version made of it, which is the upgraded version. But there's still some of the old versions kicking around on eBay and Amazon. But obviously you don't want that. It's going to make your nose sore. But yeah, I'm well chuffed with that, to be honest. I haven't painted with it yet, but I have actually tried it on for size, as you would think. But yeah, brilliant piece of kit. I'm going to probably use that this week at some point in time.
Oh, right, okay.
$15.99. There was 4 last night on Amazon, and there's none now.
Well, there we go. Oh,
yeah.
All right. So no models, just a piece of kit.
Yeah. I mean, if for anyone that's interested, it's Yooctasun is spelled Yocton.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not bought Village yet, then?
No, I haven't bought a Village yet. Am I supposed to be buying a Village?
I know you've been talking about buying Village. I just
Oh, you mean the board game?
Yeah.
No, I haven't yet. Well, we've got that many games to play. It's just like, if I buy that, then yeah, I'll buy it when we run out of games to play. New games, that is.
It'll be out of print by then, mate.
No, it's not going out of print. I checked to see what the print was like, and it's not going to go out any print anytime soon. Well, not unless by us mentioning it on here, everyone's going to go out and buy it just to spite me.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah, which I don't know if GMT Games have actually seen a spike, because there's the amount of people that have been buying Napoleonics Command and Colours recently.
I know. It's. I mean, even Rich and Nick are playing it. We got the Lordies playing it.
Dear Lord.
We could do with some commission on that, I reckon.
I reckon
That's my line.
Yeah. There's worth getting in touch with GMT Games, see if if there's been a spike in Europe.
Indeed. Yeah. So we didn't play anything this week, did we? Because we were planning. Yeah, planning, which included watching various clips of a certain 1970 war film.
Yeah,
and
the one I haven't seen.
You what? Have we been here before?
We've had this discussion before. The one I haven't seen.
You've never seen it? Oh my!
And you haven't seen The Princess Bride. Moving on.
Yeah, touche.
Not really at the same level though, really.
Well, I don't know. Yes, we had a planning session for our Market Larden game, which I think went rather well, didn't it? I think we kind of almost know what we're doing.
Just got to do it now.
Just got to do it. Yeah. So there we were planning everything we had to do, and it was like, Dave, right, you're going to paint this, and this, and I've got to make this shed load of terrain. And then next thing you know, we were chatting about the airbrush course I'd been on, and I said, I've got these things in the car. So I go out. I go out to the car, and then I wander back in. Didn't I, Dave?
Yeah.
I wandered back in. Well,
you've been a long time as well.
Yeah.
I thought you were like Captain Oates.
So limped back in.
Well, did you? Oh yeah. Claret coming out of you and everything, didn't you?
Oh yeah, it was like you said. I was went. Oh, was that blood? All my jeans were like. Oh, I was like, yeah. Yeah. Suffered a slight accident outside Mr. Luff's last Thursday night, which may put a slight dent in our preparation plans, or at least my preparation plans, as I rather clumsily fell over, and as I discovered the following morning, when I woke up and couldn't move my wrist, I'd broken my wrist. Which is a bloody stupid thing to do at the best of times. So it's a triquesial fracture for those who wanted to be technical. Basically, if you
what's that? Yeah.
Right, okay. if you look down at your it doesn't matter which one. If you look down at your wrist, and you've got the knobbly bone at the end of your arm, yeah.
What, on the inside or
on
the
outside? On the outside, you've got the knobbly bone at the end of your arm on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Immediately in front of that, you've got like 3 or 4 bones in your wrist which go around in a horseshoe, and the bone on the outside is the triquesium, and that's the one I broke.
So in your case, not.
Well, yeah. No. In my case, I have 2 of them now. At this point in time,
That's just greedy.
Indeed. Yeah. Yes. As he was described, he was like, "You see that bone there?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "When you fell over, that smashed into that one and broke it." It was like, "Oh, yeah. Thanks for that." Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So slight dent in my plans for the next few weeks, as I'm currently in plaster. Well, actually, I'm not. I think this is. I mean, you know, from a kind of model making geek point of view, you know, back in the day when I last went to hospital, yeah, and everything was made with plaster of Paris. I had a plaster of Paris temporary cast, and then they came to this.
Fundamentally, back in the day, they put your wrist in mud rock.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah.
Didn't they?
Now they do that for the temporary cast. So basically, they put like a half cast on your arm for a couple of days and wait for some of the swelling to go down. So I rolled up on Monday and they kind of went, "Okay, so we're going to put the cast on. What colour do you want?" I was like, "I'm sorry."
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
I asked you what colour you want.
I said, "What colour do you want?" Now these
I'd
things.
put a pink one on you if I was doing it.
Now these things. Funny enough, they come in red, orange, pink, yellow, green, purple, light and dark blue. Okay.
So how many? Yeah, how many dark blues were Leicester City? Leicester really firmly been getting rid of.
It looks like a coloured bandage, but it's impregnated with poly resin.
So that's giving you an idea.
Oh, that's cute.
So basically, what happens is that they wrap it round as if it's in a bandage, as if it's a bandage. Okay, and then they essentially wipe a cloth over it, damp cloth over it, and when it gets wet, it chemically activates the agent in the bandage, which heats up, and lo and behold, it turns to this kind of plasticky resin. So effectively, I was thinking about it, and effectively, my arm is encased in Restic. But it's really cool stuff. Except for the fact that it's put a real dent in my plans because, well, I can just about touch my fingers to my thumb, but my wrist is completely immobilised, and it does mean, amongst other things, that I can't drive.
Of course,
which is
change there then.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah. Which, of course, mean that I couldn't go to Hamhead at the weekend, which was, a bit of a pain. I've had to withdraw from the Star Wars regional next week because I can't get to Daventry. This weekend, as we're recording this, I've had to withdraw from that because I can't go because I can't get there. Which I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, really, but I was quite looking forward.
You could watch the rugby with Luffy instead.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I have to walk up. I have to catch a bus up to Luffy's. Yeah, so it's put a bit of a dent in my plans for the next few weeks, to be honest. Anyway, hopefully, if I've rested it all right for a week or so, I might then be able to be in a situation where I might be able to start doing some painting and scenery creation. But at the moment, it's yeah. So no gaming, broke my wrist, haven't done a lot else. Got some more stuff coming, but it hasn't arrived yet, so I'll have to talk about it next week.
I know what it is.
No, you don't. This is something else. Yeah.
But I know what the other bit you're not talking about is.
Indeed, you do. Yes, and funny enough, I did do a blog post about it the other day. We are looking at, Test of Honor. I'm going to take a very close look at Test of Honor. I've pre-ordered that. Also, I'm going to look at some buildings, because there are quite a few different people doing buildings in both MDF and non-MDF these days, and also some alternative samurai miniatures. So I've been looking around, and I'm going to be doing several reviews and comparisons of different buildings and different things you can get, all in the lead up to Test of Honor being released, because it's samurai. That was one thing I discovered this week. One film that I've been looking to see for a while. I found somewhere posted it on YouTube, called Heaven and Earth, which was made in 1990. It is not to be confused with the Oliver Stone version. This is another one, but that is a Japanese film concentrating on the battles between. Well, it ends up at the fourth battle of Kanawakajima, and has some really interesting visuals as far as looking at Japanese samurai formations and various other bits and pieces. Really interesting. And then, funnily enough, because I was looking for Samurai Banners, which is a film with it was a 1969 film with which had Mifune in it. Torisho Mifune, incredibly well-known Japanese actor. I was looking for that because I've got a VHS copy of that film, but I haven't got it on DVD, and I don't think you can. I think you can possibly get hold of the Japanese version on DVD, but it's some stupid price. Anyway, but I then discovered found this on YouTube. There are several episodes of a Japanese television series called Furin Kazan. Okay, this is a TV series based on the account of the life of Katsume. Okay, he's apologies if I've got that name wrong. He was the strategist advisor to Takeda Shingen at the time of Kanawakajima, and all around that period. So it's like 1560 ish. Famous military strategist. And as I say, they've done this TV series, several episodes, 1 hour long, English subtitles, and people have posted it on YouTube. But rather interestingly, if you're going to do something like Test of Honor, for example, of course, this is filmed in Japan, and they're trying to do a period piece. So, for example, in the first episode, a lot of it takes place on the outskirts of a peasant village. So it's really interesting, just like having a look at all the scenery and stuff like that, and everything that's round. I know it's kind of, it's TV history, so to a certain extent it's got to be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt, but it kind of gives people an idea. It should give people an idea of the sort of thing that you might want to think about when putting together your scenery for Test of Honor. So something worth looking on YouTube. Okay, Furin Kazan. That's Furin Kazan. Furin Kazan. Really interesting little TV series. Other than that, I've done nothing at all.
Oh, there we are then. I thought you said that was going to be short.
Yeah, so did I. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, hey, we're going to be talking about Dungeon Saga.
Finally.
The nation is vast. There are battlefields of old, great convention halls, and worlds of fantasy to explore. Who will guide us across this great geek nation?
Since 2010, Geek Nation Tours have been providing holidays for groups of like-minded people. Whatever your nature of geek, tabletop gaming, TV, film, comic books, sports or science, Geek Nation Tours caters for you. Visit www.geeknationtours.com for more details and join the great Geek Nation.
hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. It's time to go into the rules. It's the Meeples and Miniatures in-depth review. We go deep. Really deep.
No, I mean really, really deep.
One of the games that, well, at least one of us was playing over Christmas is a game that we almost got Jake on to talk about it at the time, but then
We did.
one thing or another never happened. But it was a Mantic Kickstarter. It's a dungeon crawler, and one of us backed it. That's the one being, indeed, Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker.
Back to the tune of, ka-ching.
Lots.
Well, put it this way: you had several big boxes turn up, didn't you?
Yeah.
How many base sets did you buy?
Just the one. But I went all in at the ding. Sorry, I'm just finding the actual pledge. Bear with me a second. So yeah, I went in at the £100 level, which was basically the core game level. And then you could pledge for add-ons in copious quantities. And I did pledge for another £200 worth of $100 worth of add-ons. So I basically went for the Dungeon Master pledge, which is pretty much the full box game, which is it's 4 inches deep and considerably bigger than an A4 box. And then the add-on components come in 2 more boxes the same size into which they don't quite all fit.
Right. Now, interestingly, myself and Mr. Luff have been discussing on several occasions. Well, actually, more to the point, Mr. Luff revealed to me his love of kind of Dungeon Bash games, which is something I wasn't previously aware of.
Oh, I was worried then. I wondered what you were going to say, what I'd revealed to you. Yes, Dungeon Bash games. Yeah. Yes.
I was kind of tempted, but was this around about the same time as Conan, or just after Conan? Dungeon Saga. When did that run from, Mike?
It funded on August the 31st, 2014. So 2.5 years ago. It actually shipped just over a year ago. So before Conan and before Conan.
See, hang on, it shipped over a year ago, and you only just played it.
Yeah.
That's better than some of your stuff, Neil.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Right. I'm not quite sure why I didn't back it. I know I looked at it. Maybe I'd OD'd on Dreadball and Dead Zone. I don't know.
I know exactly why I backed it. My wife is a D&D gamer much more than she ever is a board gamer or a war gamer, and she's been itching for a dungeon crawl. So pretty much in the same manner as Luffy. And we had our first game last week with Ash and Pippa from the club and Chris from Posh Games, and it was fab.
A box of toys you can buy without having to explain why that box of toys has just turned up.
Absolutely. And because Anne's reaction was not, what have you bought now? It was, ooh, which is a much more gratifying reaction.
So we were discussing Dungeon Bashes, and I did happen to mention Dungeon Saga, and Mr. Luff, I think I mentioned Dungeon Saga because we talked about, what was it, back to, was it Warhammer Quest days, Dave? That you had?
No, I can't remember. I mean, I played. Years ago. So we're going back a good few years. I used to play a few games that were self-generating dungeons, so you didn't need a overlord or a dungeon master or anything like that. And it was at the time, to be honest, I was just getting a little bit fed up with playing opponents, but I'd rather just played a game which was like a cooperative dungeon bash.
Boy, have I got good news for you later in this review then, Luffy.
Right, yeah, which I'm still sort of searching for. But there you go, onwards and upwards.
Boy, have I got good news for you later in this review.
Interestingly, because obviously one of the other major kind of, I suppose, competitors to the game we're talking about today, which is Dungeon Saga, is Descent from Fantasy Flight Games. I mean, again, that is a dungeon bash, but you need an overlord for it.
Yeah, and by extension, obviously, Imperial Assault, which is a descendant of...
I was just getting to that because I was going to say that Descent actually came from the original Doom board game.
Oh, I didn't know it had gone back that far.
Yeah, because Doom...
I knew its forward lineage, but I didn't know its backward lineage.
Yeah, Doom, they used the same engine from Doom to go into Descent, and they re-engineered it for Descent. Then obviously they brought Imperial Assault out, and now obviously, and then all of a sudden we have a new Fantasy Flight brought out a new version of Doom. But there we go. But I was always more into kind of sci-fi space hockey dungeon bashes. So, bottom line was, you could look at something like Descent, or you could look at something like Dungeon Saga. So we will both be really interested in what you have to say for it. So, okay, what is it?
It's a very meaty box. That's just the core game.
Okay. Okay, so what comes in the box then?
What comes in the box? Right. So, reading off the back, we have 4 plastic heroes. They're all roughly 28mm, so they're some of them, I suspect, are sculpts that have wound up in Mantic's figure range, but possibly made out of different plastics. We've got 4 plastic heroes, which are in blue plastic. We have...
What sort of plastic, can I ask? Is it hard, or is it polyurethane, or...?
It's slightly polyurethane, I think.
Right.
But I'm quite at liberty to be corrected by that. It seems to take paint quite well. I've been looking at some of the videos on YouTube of people who've been painting the skeletons and stuff, and it does seem to paint up quite well.
Right, okay.
You've got 4 plastic bosses, your arch bad guys. You have 10 plastic minions, which are predominantly skeletons and zombies and trolls and other excitement. You have some doors, some dungeon furniture, a quick start guide, a rule book, a quest book, 33 dungeon floor tiles, which is possibly a little bit of an exaggeration, and because some of them are only 3 and 4 squares big, and some tile clips to hold them together, 12d6 in 2 colours, some character reference sheet, a whole bunch of cards, and a whole bunch of counters. And it all comes in an absolutely lovely slipcase box, which looks like a big hardback book.
Oh yes, these big kind of fantasy tome things.
It just really tickled me. And all the Kickstarter expansions come in one as well. You can order a second one because all the Kickstarter stuff doesn't fit in the first one, and all the main big scenarios that come with extra figures actually ship in one of those boxes as well, if you didn't already get them as part of the Kickstarter.
All right, so basically, it looks like a big book collection on your shelf, then.
Just a bit. It does look rather fine, I have to say. It's also worth noting that if you want digital copies, Mantic Digital do all of the stuff. The rulebook's free if you want to check it out. You can. Let's actually go and have a look, because I've got Mantic Digital open here, because strangely enough, it's a very good way of talking about the rules while you're reviewing them. So the rulebook is free. There's this adventure pack, which is basically the core set, is the Dwarf King's Quest. Some of you may remember the Mantic board game Dwarf King's Hold, which was actually a 2-player dungeon skirmish, of which more later. And then, so if you go back to the store for Dungeon Saga, then the rules are free. The digital copy of the core scenario stuff is missing somewhere. I can't find it. There it is. Is $6.99. That's just for PDFs of various bits, or you can get what's called the Adventurer's Pass, which is $29.99 and gets you all the digital content, including all the scenarios, all the expansions, all the support books, etc., etc., etc. The core rules are the core game is. Do you want prices for the core game? Should we go for prices for the core game?
If you wish.
Well, I've got Mantic's site here, and they have a handy shop with sensible links. Dungeon Saga, getting started. The game is £50. The scenarios are variously around the $29.99 mark, and then there's a few extra accessories like dungeon furniture packs, dungeon tile packs, and you can get more of the miniatures, and they're typically about 15-20 quid a set, depending on which scenario they're for. But if you buy the scenario packs, then they come in with the scenarios.
Right. So the miniatures are all kind of slightly soft plastic.
A little, yeah, just a touch. They all come with grey bases, so they're effectively a two-part miniature in that the coloured plastic miniature plugs into the base, and the bases are all flagstone effect, which is quite nice. It fits in with the dungeon tiles.
All right, so there's no other than putting a miniature on a base. There's no assembly of miniatures,
with a couple of isolated exceptions. There's a certain dragon.
It's quite a nice-looking dragon.
It's a freaking awesome dragon. It won't fit in the box with its wings on. I would swear it's 10 inches across the wings and about 6-7 inches high. And it is gorgeous. And that's actually in one of the expansion sets. That's in Tyrant of Halpi, I think. Or if you pledged the 100, or if you picked it up as part of the Kickstarter add-ons, then it was available there. But it's also, I believe, available the same sculpt, but possibly in a different plastic, as a Kings of War model.
And obviously, Crocodile Hobbs at this point would say, "That's not a dragon. This is the dragon."
It's not that bad.
It looks pretty good.
It is pretty nice.
Oh no, I'm saying it's a nice dragon. It's just that, you know.
It's actually also, interestingly, sufficiently well designed that the wings sort of plug into the body, and if you're not too rough with it, they will actually stay plugged in while you move it around the table.
It's always good to have a dragon when you're in a dungeon.
There's good sound historical reasons for it.
Yes.
So yeah, essentially that's the box. As I said, the core game has a scenario called the Dwarf King's Quest. He says, being careful not to confuse it with the Dwarf King's Hold, which starts with a couple of nice little starter scenarios that are just two players against the system, and then all your four players meet up and carry on from there. Now, it is designed for 2 to 5 players. One player plays what's called the Overlord, although there are ways of getting round that, and he basically is the equivalent of the DM. He handles the bad guys.
Right.
And then you start off they come with pre-generated characters for the scenarios, but there are ways of generating your own. And if there's one of you, you play all 4. If there are 2 of you, you play 2 each. If there are 3 of you, you fight over it. If there's 4 of you, you play 1 each, basically.
Okay, so you say up to 4. So 4 people. What do you play?
You've got, the core characters for the main scenario, if you don't have any reason to pre-generate, which I'll cover later. There's a human barbarian called Olaf, who is quickish, thuggish, and has not brilliant armour. You have a dwarf fighter called Rodin, who will appeal to me.
Sorry, human barbarian. What's his Conan by any other name?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. You have a dwarf fighter called Rodin, who is slightly slower, slightly poorer attacks, but lots of armour. And then you have an elf ranger called Madriger, who, predictably enough, is bleeding quick, shoots well, and doesn't have very good armour. And you have a mage who'll blow away in a strong wind if you hit him.
What? No thief?
No thief. There's potential for that kind of thing. We'll get to it later. But those are your 4 core characters you start the game with. And basically what the system does, which is actually quite nice, is your first scenario pairs the dwarf and the barbarian as their strictly hand-to-hand characters against a bunch of undead grockles, just to get you used to the fighting mechanic.
Sorry, undead what, sorry?
Grockles, low-level grok. Skeletons to you, mate.
Minions, mate.
Yeah, minions. What you
Red
said.
shirts.
Red
Grockles,
shirts.
aren't they just tourists down south somewhere?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know if it's Cornwall or Dorset. They call them Grockles. I think it's Dorset.
I don't know. It was a term our D&D group used to use for the kind of things that wandered around with a T-shirt on that said CF for cannon fodder.
I've just never come across that word at all before.
Well, now you have.
There we go.
Yeah, it's because you're a Brummie. That's why.
Uncultured, I know.
So basically, I said your first scenario, you get to just try out the melee combat system with the 2 melee characters. Second combat system is allegedly quotes the other end of the dungeon where the ranger and the wizard are coming in, so you get to find out about missile combat and spells, and then they all meet up for the first scenario proper, and it's quite nice. It works really nicely, easy to pick up. It's a Jake Thornton game, so what do you expect?
So before we get into the rules of the game, let's just finish off talking about components. So you talked about all the sort of kind of plasticky models we get, and plastic doors and stuff. What are the quality of the dungeon tiles like? Because I know, especially with something like
fairly thick card.
Because I know with Dwarf King's Hold, one of the complaints about Dwarf King's Hold was the flimsy nature of the dungeon tiles.
I know these are pretty. They're a couple of mil thick, fairly decent card.
Okay, so
sounds of rustling in box. Sorry.
Okay, so they're kind of. Are they kind of laminated card, or that kind of plasticky finish, or what?
They look like they got what's his name finish, don't they? Linen finish to me on the photographs.
Slightly. Yeah. They're not plasticky.
So you got your 4 heroes in there.
Yeah.
What other plastic minis do you get in there?
Whole bunch of skeletons, zombies, troll zombies, other things that will be a spoiler if you're playing the scenario. Ghosts, necromancers, fun things like that.
So are there big bosses in there as well?
There are 4 boss characters who are actually, relatively speaking, they're including a whopping great zombie troll who's a 4 square base rather than 1 square base figure, which is quite fun. Yeah, effectively, the way most of the scenarios work is that you go through several doors to a boss in the final room. It should be predictably familiar to anybody who's ever played this kind of thing before, in fact.
So, did you ever play Hero Quest, Mike?
No, I never have.
Right, so there's no really point asking you what the similarities are, because as soon as I look at it on the Mantic store, straight away I sort of go, "Ooh, Hero Quest."
Oh, shall we go through the structure of a turn and the combat system and see what you think after I've done that?
Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to ask actually is, seeing that we're sort of gamers for mortals, which is something that me and Neil always try and sort of stay true to, because not everyone has got, huge room to play games, even though we sort of have now. But what sort of size do you need for this game? A good setup size.
Probably dependent on how sprawly your dungeon gets. I would be surprised. The squares, it's quite interesting actually. Our first reaction on opening the box was those tiles were smaller than I expected, and I think most of the scenarios would fit on a 2x2 or at worst a 3x3.
So it's quite accessible on a dining room table.
Oh, it's very accessible. We had it out on our dining room table, and we had loads of room. It'll fit on our kitchen table without both flaps up, I suspect. In fact, it's not a big game unless you want it to be. So, which is nice. I mean, it does mean you don't have to get out the gaming table to play it. It'll sit on. I said it'll sit on a 2x2. I suspect for most of it, even allowing for your player character cards.
And sounds like it's, looking at the box as well here online, it looks like it's quite portable, which is obviously for a Dungeons and Dragons thing. It's something that's probably pretty important, really.
Yeah, I mean, even if I was to take every single scenario I own, it's 3 of those book-shaped boxes.
Yeah, that's clever. I quite like that.
They're really pretty. They're very clever, actually.
Just put them on your gaming shelf, and that's it.
Yeah, and they look good. They look great. But yeah. So anyway, shall we go through a sample turn? I'll sort of give you a feel for how things work. Okay, so one player takes the Overlord, at least for now. Let's go with that, and he gets a effectively a control sheet for the monsters. And monsters and players alike have effectively three and a half stats, I think is probably the most accurate way of describing it. Four stats. They have a movement, which is quite simply how many squares they can move on the squared dungeons. You can move diagonally, it costs you 1. They have a combat skill, which is typically in the range 2 to 4, 5. They have an armor value, which is typically in the range 1 to 4, or 0 to 4 for some things. And those things that have missile weapons, have a shooting skill, which is different from their combat skill. And then they have a number of wounds. Now, this works slightly differently for different monsters. The bigger boss monsters tend to actually have wounds you have to keep tally of and their own character sheet. So you will actually mark them off as they take wounds. Some of the lesser minion-type monsters, for example, skeletons, if you do them 1 hit, nothing happens. If you do them 2 hits, they collapse into a pile of bones, which the necromancer can later resurrect. And if you do them 3 hits, they vanish into a cloud of dust, never to be seen again. So for most of the minions, you tend to have this, you don't need to keep tally, just did you do them enough hits to kill them outright, otherwise they carry on fighting. For the big one-off boss monsters, you have to tally the hits, but they do provide you with a sheet to do so. So, and the player characters are exactly the same, except being a player character, of course, you have the odd special ability and so on and so forth, which we'll come to in a bit. Obviously, the elf can shoot. The wizard has spells. Every character has a feat, or possibly more than one as they get higher. And a feat is something you can do once per game. For example, the barbarians is that once per game he can make it's a feat called Whirlwind, and he can make a 4-dice attack against every enemy model that's adjacent to him, which is just a useful get out of trouble once kind of feature. The elf has the ability to shoot 3 arrows at once rather than 1. We always assumed that was 3 arrows on the bow in the typical Legolas fashion, of course. So, to start with, what happened? You'd lay out the dungeon, and the scenario book has a nice little pictogram of the tile layout. There's an icon where each of the heroes starts. There are icons for initial monster and loot and everything else placement. And then there's basically 3 phases. In the first phase, the heroes go in whatever order they like. It's absolutely up to the players. This is the first step in the whole cooperative nature of it, in that you can choose to go in whatever order is most effective. If it turns out that you want the dwarf to kill someone so that they're out of line of sight for the archer to shoot at the next someone, for example, then you'd pick an order like that, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so just want to confirm there, it is one character's complete activation.
That's correct, yes.
And as soon as you activate a second character, the previous character loses whatever they have left.
Yep.
Right.
Which is what, yeah. For your hero can move and or perform an action in that order. So if you're going to move first. It means you can't kill something and then move move away. Okay. And if you don't, your other option is you can use your heroic feat instead of moving.
Does a thief have the opportunity of being able to move after?
I don't know. I've not got as far as thieves yet.
I bet he does.
Okay, so that's your hero turn, and obviously your perform action includes shoot, cast a spell, hit something, smash down a door, open a chest. All those are things that one would expect to be able to do in this genre. Now, once they have moved and done combat, which I'll get back to in a minute, then the Overlord essentially does the same thing, except the way he does it, he has a number of commands per turn, which he may use to effectively activate a critter. So if he's got 3 commands, he can tell 3 skeletons to do move and hit, or if they're a skeleton archer, shoot, or whatever. The other option in the first scenario, because the Overlord is a necromancer, he can also resurrect a pile of bones into another skeleton.
Can I ask a quick question here? You said pile of bones. Do you actually get models of the pile of bones?
You get counters if you subscribe to the right bit of the Kickstarter. I think you get models as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I've seen the models. I haven't delved deep enough to my pile of Kickstarter add-ons to be sure I've got any. There's a lot of toys in this box.
You've had it a year, man.
I remind the honourable gentleman he's probably in no position to talk.
And?
Right. However, the Overlord also gets what are called command cards. Now, command cards, he can also play one command card a turn. And these do things like give him one extra command, 2 extra commands, 3 extra commands, double commands, a raise dead, which is basically a command, but you can only use it to raise dead. Actually, no, I tell a lie. A raise dead is a command I don't think you can use a raise dead. Or maybe you can. I said I've not played the necromancer yet, so. But there's raise dead once, twice, and 3 times in addition to his commands allowed for this turn. So you basically. Now, the other clever thing with those is you start with a hand of 3 out of N. And the number of cards is actually scenario dependent. And for a lot of scenarios, the size of the Necromancer's card deck is the timer for the scenario. When he draws his last card, that is the last turn. If you have not accomplished your goals by then, you lose. Which is quite nice. It's quite a clever little mechanism. And various of the scenarios add extra cards to the... That's the basic Overlord deck for Necromancers. There are different Overlord decks in the different scenarios. The Dragon will have a different one. Some of the scenarios say remove the following cards from the deck, and then what remains is the Overlord deck. Some of them say add the following cards to the basic deck, and that's the Overlord deck. But they all, with a couple of exceptions, they all have this concept of when the Overlord deck runs out, if you haven't completed the scenario, you lose. Which is quite sweet. I like that.
Okay. So, when you set up, do you set up the entire dungeon?
No. They usually says set up as far as the first door.
So you can see, you only set up what the adventurers can see then.
Well, effectively, you set up. Typically, you assume they can see to the first door because there's a very. It's square rooms, tunnels, and doors. Basically, it's a classic dungeon. It's a dungeon. What more can we say? But when you get deeper into the Necromancer card deck, he can interrupt, which is to say that in between two hero turns during the hero's phase, he can give one of his minions a command, which is quite evil. It means you can forestall the hero's plans if you have a card that'll do it. There's a couple of other ones. I'm not necessarily going to spoiler the scenarios by saying what all of them are, because there are a couple that are a really nasty surprise for some of the scenarios. It's not knowing what the Necromancer can do first time out is actually really quite fun. It's one of those things where it's nice not to have complete knowledge. So anyway, that's effectively how movement works. Combat is one of those Jake Thornton classics, in that it's a mechanism you learn once for nearly every possible opposed role in the game, and once you've learnt it, that's how the world works, and everything just about is done using this one mechanic. It's really easy to learn, it works really well, it scales nicely. So, effectively, for a straight opposed roll of me swinging a sword against your shield, I get 1 dice for every point of combat skill. You get 1 dice for every point of your combat skill. We both roll. I discard any dice which do not beat your armor. Right, so immediately, if you have armor 2 and I roll 5, if I've got combat skill 4 and I roll 5, 4, 3, 1, I discard the 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right, now, the rest of the mechanic is Hallow, Sword and Spear. I take my dice, I take your dice, we sort them into descending order, and we pair them up highest versus highest. If I beat you as the attacker, I do you a hit. If you tie or beat me, I don't do you a hit. If you don't have a dice to oppose mine, I do you a hit. So if I, for instance, have 5, 4, 3, 1, and you have 6, 2, then your 6 beats my 5, my 4 beats your 2, and my 3 beats your unopposed dice, so I do you 2 hits.
So it's not simultaneous. It's attack and defend.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's always attack and defend.
Mm-hmm.
And that roll happens for there are modifiers. If you are outnumbered, you lose dice. If you're being attacked from the rear, you lose dice. There are various things that give you more dice. You can never roll more than 6 dice. And if you would roll less than 2 dice, then instead your armor target or difficulty target goes down by 1. So if I was hitting you from behind and you only had 2 combat skill, that would be reduced to 1. So we don't reduce it to 1. Instead, we drop your armor by 1. But if you had 3 combat skill and I attack you from behind, your combat skill will reduce to 2. So basically, maximum 6 dice, minimum of 2 dice. Mm-hmm. Anything below 2 dice, you lose the difficulty number. And then smashing a door down becomes the door effectively has an armor value and a number of hits and a defense skill. You have to do it a hit, smash the door down. Opening a chest, the same. Spells just have a skill level. A firebolt spell is 2 dice, so you roll against their armor. Shooting is the same, except you use your shooting skill against their combat skill rather than your melee skill. And that is, fundamentally, that is the game mechanic for the game. It's that easy to describe, it's that easy to learn, and you can now forget about it and get on and play, crawl down your dungeon.
It's that easy, Neil. It's a rule set that I'd be able to learn.
It is.
And not forget it.
It is in the best possible way. Absolutely classic Jake Thornton. Let's get a mechanic that works and use it. And as I think most listeners will know, I am a huge fan of the way Jake Thornton designs games, and this one wins as well, in my book.
So you say, Mike, with the scenarios, the Overlord has a number of characters.
Yes.
And he obviously has the full scenario in front of him.
Yes.
The dungeon basically opens up as you investigate.
Yes.
But the actual number of turns to actually complete.
It's per the main scenario in the core box is, I think, 8 sub scenarios, and each of them has a dungeon which has usually got 2 to 3 rooms plus a final door, and you finish the dungeon when you typically when you go through the final door, and the timer applies to that.
Yeah, but it can also finish when the Overlord uses his final card.
The usual criterion is if the Overlord cripples one of the characters. Now, most characters have 5 hits, or they have 5 hearts on their character sheet. Some of them are in white, and the rest are in red. As soon as you filled out all the white ones, you count as injured, and you lose 1 dice on all your activities.
Mm.
Now, if you're the dwarf, you have 4 white ones and 1 red one. If you're the mage, you have 1 white one and 4 red ones. So again, there's a merchant NPC you rescue at one point who has no white ones and counts as permanently incapacitated.
The clock is always ticking when you're playing the game.
Pretty much, yeah. There is essentially a turn limit.
Mm.
And in most cases, you can't afford, as we discovered to our cost playing the first real scenario last week, you cannot afford to stand there and tough it out with the skeletons until you've dusted them all, because you will run out of time.
Do the players get to know the countdown clock, shall we say?
It's obvious from the size of the Overlord's discard pile. Sorry, the draw pile. And it's known that that's one of the criteria. They always know they're under time pressure. If you can't count how many cards you think there are in that small pile of cards, that's your problem.
There ain't many left if you can't see.
Yeah, quite. The only other little subtleties are and this only actually applies to things that magically appear, and so on and so forth. If you try and... monsters have a forward-facing arc. Everything has a forward-facing arc, which is you've got to face one of the sides of the square you're in, and it's the 3 squares in front of you and the 2 to either side. And you're either in the front arc, which is those 5 squares, or the rear arc, which is the other 3. If you are in the front arc and you try to move away, then the thing you are moving away from gets a free hit. You do get to defend against it, but it gets to hit you even though it's out of turn. Now, and equally, with the whole raising dead from pile of bones, there are some specific rules for the core scenario. If you're standing on a pile of bones, the necromancer can't raise dead from it. And if he materializes a pile of bones right next to you, you get a free hit at it.
Nice.
And that's fundamentally the system. As you go on, the scenarios get a bit deeper, and there are odd little special rules. There are different spells, but most of the spells translate to game effects. Like, there's an entangle spell that reduces your move. There's a protection spell that increases your armor. There are magical blasts of various kinds that effectively do end dice of attack at. There are effectively two ranges, the short and long, and they provide you a couple of little rulers in the box, for which I think there's something like 4 squares and 8 squares, but I haven't actually bothered to measure. I just use them when I need them. So effectively, all range spells can be short or long. They can be line of sight or not, and they just in various ways manifest themselves as either attacks done using the attack resolution system, or some form of effect that ups or downs a stat. In addition to that, the mages, there are a whole bunch of spell cards, and if you're playing the scenarios as pre-programmed, you're told which spells the mage gets. And they are divided into major and minor, and as an action, your starting level mage, before he's got any special skills, can do either 1 major or 2 minors. And one of the minors is a spell called Crystallize, which creates you a power crystal. If you've got nothing else to do, it's always worth firing off Crystallize, because you just roll a d6 to determine whether you get a 1-point, 2-point, or 3-point crystal, and that basically adds dice to your spell effects. So you'll attack, your 4-dice firebolt will become a 5-dice attack firebolt if you use 1 crystal, 1 point of crystal on it, for example, which is quite a nice. Again, it's just another of these typical Jake Thornton build on the core mechanic things. Yeah. And the other way it works is that at the end, there's an end of turn phase. At the end of every turn, all spells get rotated. When you cast a spell, if it's a major spell, you rotate it 180 degrees. If it's a minor spell, you reduce it. You rotate it 90 degrees anti-clockwise. At the end of the turn, you rotate spells back by 90 degrees, which means that you can use a minor spell in successive turns, because you can only use spells when they're spell cards when they're vertically upright. A major spell has to have a turn's worth of rest before you can use it again. Effectively, minor spell you cast, you rotate 90 degrees to the left. At the end of the turn, you rotate it back to the right, so it's available for you again. Major spell, you turn it completely upside down, so it's pointing, so it's rotated so the text is upside down, and it takes you 2 rotations to get that back to upright, so you can actually use it again. There's a couple of there's a few spells that have end of round effects and special abilities that you need to do at end of round, and then the Overlord draws his next card. And if he has no more cards to draw, your time has run out.
Cool.
And that's pretty much it.
So in the core box, which
yes.
is 50 quid.
Yeah.
You get the one sort of campaign book, don't you?
You get the one campaign book, you get the main rule book. You get the core, you get 70 assorted item and spell and all the other things. Now, items, again, are just like spells. They're things that up stats, increase your attacks, just work within the game mechanic.
So how many adventures are there in the quest book?
8, if memory serves. I have the digital copy handy, but I'm pretty sure the answer to that is 8. Plus the 2 starter ones to get you used to it. And then you've got another 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 adventures on top of that. Quests on top of that. But and this is where the fun starts. We can go on, if you like, to things above and beyond just doing the scenarios in the book, which is where I think Dave is going to start getting interested.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, first off, you've got. What is it? There's 4 expansion packs, aren't there?
Well, there's actually 3 more than that. Let me just go and find my Dropbox folder into which I've downloaded all my Mantic digital stuff.
Well, there's 3 for sale.
Right, there are.
I can see 4 for sale. Because there's Return for Valandor, there's the Infernal Crypts, there's the Warlord of Galahir, and the Tyrant of Halpi.
And there's also the Tiles for Black Fortress.
Yeah, there's the Tiles for Black Fortress, which is
available as a download.
And I assume that is alongside the Adventurer's Companion, which is the other thing.
Now in the Adventurer's Companion, there are actually no scenarios.
Right, but that's it.
But in the Dungeon Journal, which is also available, was available to Kickstarter backers and is available as a digital. There's also effectively the scenarios that were Dwarf King's Hall, the original game, redone as a Dungeon Saga scenario, plus the follow-up. Was that Green Tide? Memory serves.
Yeah.
Green Tide. So Dwarf King's Green Tide is also available as a scenario. And there's also the Unholy Crusade, which appears to be only available as digital, which is essentially a scenario book that uses most of the figures from Infernal Crypts. But the fun really starts when you get cracking with the Adventurer's Companion. Because in the Adventurer's Companion, there is the official definitive, we've added all the special rules from all the scenarios set of rules. So, which covers, all the odd little extras that got stuck in later scenarios on, like, rules for trading items, which they forgot to mention, I think, in the main rule books, etc. And then there is a section titled, with an affectionate nod to Mr. Bowie, We Can Be Heroes, which is where you get to create your own hero. Mm-hmm. You have the obvious races and the not so obvious. You have Dwarf, Human, Elf, and Halfling. You have Glade Walker, which is some weird tree thing. You have Naiad, you have Salamander, and you have Sylph. And then you have professions: Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Demon Hunter, Druid, Fighter, Paladin, specially for Dave, Thief, and Wizard. And there is a whole section on building a hero, creating abilities, going up levels. There's a whole song system for bards, which I'm not going to go through in any detail. But I'm just trying to give you the flavour. There is a whole campaign system. And then, the bit that Dave's going to like, there is a thing called Uncharted Dungeons. Mm-hmm. Uncharted Dungeons basically is creating random dungeons based on a set of... There are a set of small cards which basically contain effectively dungeon rooms, and you decide how big you want your dungeon to be. You deal out N of these, and then you place the first one. It will say, roll a d6. On a 1, the exit door is that one. It's here. On a 2 and 3, it's there. On a 4, it's there. On a 5, it's there. On a 6, it's there. So the next room will join onto it there. So you get replayability because the dice rolls will change and the card draws will change. Mm-hmm. And then you place your boss, and then so that gets you the dungeon. There are then a series of what's called Invisible Overlord cards, which basically allow you to play the Overlord as a bot, if you like, by using the Invisible Overlord deck, which governs what actions he takes, whether he prioritizes on. It basically is things. It'll say things like, okay, so you have a set of cards which govern things like how hard the scenario is, what the total levels of the scenario are, how tough the lock on the final door is, kind of thing. And in addition, your cards, your Invisible Overlord cards, do things like, you say you have 2 targets. You should treat spellcasters as your primary threat. Your order is to stop them moving, you move to pin them in place, and you have 1 interrupt, or you'll get one that says you get 3 actions. Your target is the weakest critter, the weakest hero. Your order is to attack them and do them as much damage as possible. That kind of thing. So basically, you will get one of those you will draw one of those a turn for the Overlord, and you will. That there is some expansion on what those how to interpret those instructions in the Adventurer's Companion, but you will use that to guide what the Overlord's tactics are for that turn, and that basically gets you out of needing an Overlord.
It's also quite interesting that they've done miniatures as well. So as well as the expansion boxes, which obviously all come with their own mini campaigns and figures, you can also buy the miniatures, or you can buy metal miniatures separately.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that they come with the appropriate cards that you need.
I would guess so, yes. It's also worth noting that in the Adventurer's Compendium, you do also get, if you don't want to use if you don't want to use either pre-generated scenarios or randomly generated scenarios using the Invisible Overlord plus the Adventurer's Compendium cards, you can actually design your own. And there are guidelines in there for that. So fundamentally, you have a complete program campaign system with 4, 5, 6 campaigns. You have a randomly generated, completely cooperative you against the system game, and you can have a classic GM'd, written by the GM, set of scenarios with your own characters that go up in levels as they do dungeons. There's even a set of cards for what you do between dungeons. There's a deck of places you can go visit, and you deal three of these out at random between adventures, and the players can choose what they visit, and they have to make various skill rolls, and in doing so they'll possibly acquire more items, go up more levels, etc., etc., etc. And that, in a very sketchy nutshell, is Dungeon Saga.
It does sound good.
It's a cracker. I have to say, we only played the 2 introductory get used to the system scenarios and the first adventure 1 of Dwarf King's quest proper, and I think we were all hooked. We'd all pretty much got to the point where we weren't having to consult the rulebook to figure out how the game mechanics worked. We were all stopping and having tactical decisions to decide, do we want the dwarf to stand here? Because if we do so, then they've got line of sight for the elf to shoot, or does the dwarf want to go get stuck in and try and boot that monster out of the way so the elf can run past and shoot, that kind of thing. It was great fun.
Is there anything that you don't like about them?
I think you'll love it, Dave. Anything I don't like about it?
What the miniatures like? That's usual down with.
They paint up very well. They suffer a bit from the classic may need dunking in boiling water.
Yeah, that's
but that's Mantic for you. They paint up beautifully. If you look at some of the painting videos that are around on YouTube, they really do come up very nice. The skeletons in particular are doddle, because you can literally just paint them white and ink wash them, and then just detail the cloaks and stuff, and they look really good. There's one guy on the YouTube who's basically done a complete set of painting videos for the entirety of the core box, and fundamentally he's done most of the skeletons are almost completely done with ink washes, including the cloaks. He's just done the cloaks with thick layers of ink wash, multiple layers of ink wash to get the light and shade. Very little shading on it at all. The Banshee's just come out brilliant. He basically undercoated it white, gave it 2 layers of blue ink, and then some bone white dry brush highlights back, and it looks fantastic. And the sculpt for it is actually really, really nice. And the ghosts are the same. He's just done those in a couple of layers of grey ink, and they look really, really quite impressively spooky. The main character figures paint up quite nicely. I've not seen anything that paints up badly. There are a few of them that are a bit, I've seen better sculpts, but there's nothing ugly. What don't I like about it? I think the only thing I really don't like about it is purely because I come from an RPG background, in that there's not a lot of roleplay in it. But if you want a dungeon crawl, it's brilliant.
And it'll play right down to 1 player.
You can play 1 player. If you really want, you can play solo 1 player against the Invisible Overlord deck. With 4 characters.
That's a game for you, Neil.
I'm sorry?
That's a game for you. You can play on your own. Now the boy's gone home. Well, left home, should I say.
Hang on a minute, but I thought you played fantasy.
I do. And? What's your point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantasy game, so I don't have to play it on my own.
Yeah, but like when you're bored at night, and the lad's gone away. You're not round my house.
Oh no! On that, I'll be playing solo Lord of the Rings and getting my arse kicked every time. But because at least that means I don't have to paint anything.
Well, there's always that, isn't there?
But there you go, Luffy.
Yeah.
You don't have to paint anything. But yeah, if you look up Spider666, his videos on YouTube, SPYDAH 666, he's done a complete series on painting all the miniatures, which gets you a good look at what the miniatures look like. And they are actually rather nice.
Mm.
They are above average game for board game components.
You get that terrible sinking feeling that you should have backed.
You should have pledged. Hell yeah! Put it this way: we are currently looking at playing at least once a month, if not more. The only reason it might not be more is I came back from Rogue One with a serious hankering for Imperial Assault, for what I trust are perfectly obvious reasons.
Oh yes, I have that. Yes, I have that in hand.
So I now. I may have had a sad accident at boardgameextra.co.uk.
All right. Of course, Luffy, you won't be bothered about this, will you? Because it's sci-fi.
Well, not massively.
Oh, it's all right. Because I haven't had an accident, but somebody we both know has.
Who would that be?
Hello, Mr. Hickman. I know you're listening. We're talking about you.
He's had a terrible accident with Star Wars Imperial Assault, has he?
Yeah, he was asking. Yeah, again, like you, having watched Rogue One, he then started looking around for Star Wars games, and he looked at me. He says, "So, what do you reckon then?" He said, "Should I go for Imperial Assault or should I go for Rebellion?" And I said, "Well, Rebellion is more of a kind of a risks type strategy game. Imperial Assault, yeah."
Because I think it goes without saying that sometime this year there's going to be a big box scenario for Rogue One coming out.
Well, it depends if they got the license.
Yeah.
True. Okay, I mean they are currently only working through the original trilogy, but it just does look as though it's the game you'd want to play anything about Rogue One in, isn't it? Because it is really just a low-level, down and dirty building crawl arse kicking. Can I say that?
You just have.
Indeed. But you know what I mean. It's an on the ground single figure level shoot 'em up dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It wants playing in Rogue One, and I came out and I mentioned this to Anna and said, "Yeah, we need to get Imperial Assault." So far be it from me to argue.
Yeah, indeed.
Remember, my wife is a bigger Star Wars nut than I am by about an order of magnitude. She was the one having squeeze over Red Leader and Gold Leader.
Spoilers!
I've seen it, but I'm not going to say any more than that.
There you go, then, Mr. Luft. Does that potentially answer your questions and scratch and look like something that might scratch your itch?
Yeah. The only unfortunate thing is obviously I know about this now after the Kickstarter.
I'll tell you what. Serious offer. Do you want to come down one Sunday afternoon and have a game?
Hey, look, there's an offer.
Isn't it?
That might be an idea, mightn't it?
Is
that just to me, or is that to all the listeners? I hope you've got plenty of lager, cooking lager.
Well, we have an upper limit. Remember, we have an upper limit of 3 since there'll be Anne and I. But yeah,
I'm going. In that case, sounds like I'm going to be driving again.
Yeah, but so seriously though, let's arrange a Meeples Dungeon Saga game, and you can see what it's like.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
You're only an hour away.
Yeah. Sounds a good idea.
Just like find a Sunday when Neil's not doing church or recording a podcast.
Indeed. It sounds good to me, mate.
Right, let's do that.
Say it's okay. I don't want to come to your dungeon bash, even though you'll have a spare. No, it's
fine.
fine.
We'll have a spare. You're very welcome to make it if you make it.
It's a bit of a drive.
Bit of a drive just for the day. We'll have to make a weekend of it.
If you can get here, mate.
Plus, I might have already pre-ordered it from Firestorm.
What, in the last 10 minutes?
Maybe.
Oh my word! Ooh, shiny by it.
I like dungeon bashes. I just
It's just flat out good fun. It's not grand tactics. It's not epic, massive, heroic, nitpicky, detailed fantasy. It's just a rollicking good laugh, and it's easy.
But don't tell people that I may have bought a Mantic product because
Indeed.
my reputation goes before me.
I think your reputation's just gone, mate.
Plus the fact, of course, this just goes to prove that it doesn't have to be a guest that we have on the show in order for us to end up buying stuff whilst on air.
No, absolutely not. I haven't got anything else to buy. I own the game in its entirety.
Dear me. And on that note, well, thank you, thank you for Mr. Whitaker for explaining Dungeon Saga to us and helping relieve at least some of us of our cash and maybe some more of us of our cash before too long. Yes, at that point, I think what we'll do, we'll take a quick break. This is a message from The Cranky Lawyer. Huzzah! Please plan to join us for 3 great days of the best our hobby has to offer. Beautiful tabletops, challenging scenarios, board games, a wonderful variety of gaming-related shopping, and great company. Huzzah! May 19th to the 21st, 2017, South Portland, Maine. Miniatures games, board games, tournaments, vendors, raffle and great company. Join us for 3 days of fun. If you want to learn more about shoutouts, visit our Patreon page. The link is on the website. We always love to hear from you, our listeners. You can contact us in a couple of ways. You can do that via email at mailbag@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk, or you can now leave a voicemail message for us. The number to call is 0116 318 4114. Please don't, call charges may apply. Cue wibbly wobbly timey wimey effect. There you have it. We've just done a review that we recorded just after Christmas, wasn't it?
Something like that.
Yes, because it was prompted largely by my Christmas week game of Dungeon Saga.
Indeed, and
on the theory that I figured I probably ought to play it before I reviewed it.
Of course, if you remember Mr. Luff, we of course were invited at the end of that review to go to Mr. Whitaker's to play said Dungeon Saga.
Yeah.
Have we done that yet?
No.
Sigh.
We're not very good at this, are we?
No, and you can't come this weekend because I'm at the O2, and you probably can't come next week because I won't know what time zone I'm in.
There's only so much days in the week, isn't it? That's the problem.
This is it, and then no doubt the week after that, Tigers will be at home.
We haven't got a home game now till end of the month. There's only about 2 home games left now.
Yeah, but when's the Six Nations finish?
That's pretty soon as well.
Ooh, we might get a window.
Oh, awesome! Presupposes I'm not gigging or rehearsing.
Well, yeah, but there we go.
Such a busy life we lead. I'm sure we'll work something out, and there is still cake.
I keep checking
it to make sure it hasn't gone off. 2
more games after today, after this weekend.
Ooh, so
are they alternate weeks, or are they?
Normally they do 2 games, 2 days, 2 weeks on the bounce. They have been, and then they have a rest week. But yeah, I haven't looked actually what the program is.
I suspect most of our listeners do not care about our game scheduling problems, however.
Indeed. However, it may be that before the end of April, we may finally get to Shea Whitaker to play Dungeon Saga.
Don't forget, I'm going to Canada in April.
What were we saying about scheduling problems? Yeah, so we can go and play Dungeon Saga. So Mr. Luff can finally play it and decide whether he wants to buy it or not.
Oh, all right. Am I buying that as well? Am I? I best get some more work then.
Wasn't the whole point that you were looking for a dungeon crawler?
Yeah, you're probably right. I have to get some more work then. Not like the customer I've had this week. Anyway, that's something completely different.
Yes.
Anyway.
Just so as not to leave our listeners in suspense, next week, the weekend of the 11th is Six Nations. The weekend of the 18th is Six Nations. Currently, there's nothing on the weekend of the 25th.
I think Tigers are playing at home on the 25th.
Yes, what was the phrase? And so we end up in Easter. Yes.
There's very little that gets in the way of my gaming, but rugby is one of them.
Rugby is one of them. Oh, never mind. So you never know. By the end of April, Dave may have made a decision because obviously I think at the time we were actually reviewing Dungeon Saga, it was out of stock at Mantic. The base game has now come back into stock. Although, having said that, it may kind of come in and go out of stock again by the time somebody around here gets his act together. You never know. We will wait and see. Getting a game of Dungeon Saga is still high on our list of things to do, just so we can have a look to see if it's something that we might like.
Saturday, 25th of March, home v Northampton Saints.
Yeah, no chance of me missing that.
No, especially after the last one. Oh, no. All right, okay.
Oh, the things I have to put up with.
Can't miss the local derby.
Don't worry, Michael.
Moving swiftly on.
Moving swiftly on. Yes, okay.
You could come on your... Oh, wait, you can't. You've broken your wrist.
Yes, I can't. Yes, I can't come on my own. Yes, I have a non-functional wrist. Never mind. So, Dungeon Saga sounds really interesting. Have you played it since?
Oh, no, I haven't had time either.
Yeah.
Not for want of trying, but gathering together, it's worth playing with four.
Right.
Potentially even 4 plus a GM. It's worth having one person per character once you get going. And just not had chance to gather. We've either been away or rehearsing or auditioning or gaming or all the other things. So no, but I very much want to, because as you probably heard from the review that we've just done, I really like it. At least I think I was nice about it. It was quite a while ago.
As I said, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. It's that sort of episode. So all that's left to be said. And one slight reminder, guys. Next week it's our 200th episode. Would you believe it? Episode 200 is next week. Wow. Okay. So
we have an interview.
Pardon?
We have an interview.
We do have an interview. With someone. With a gentleman gamer who you may have heard of. We've done a big celebration for our 10-year anniversary, which was only kind of like, last 6 weeks ago. So, it's just episode 200. Whoa, we're 200. Let's get on with things. It'll be a little bit of a celebration, but pretty much business as usual. Perhaps.
And we're not live streaming it because I'm in Seattle.
Indeed. Yes, Mr. Whitaker will be joining us live from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
At a time still yet to be decided, because every time I think I've got it sorted, the blasted conference changes its schedule.
Cool. Yes, Mr. Hobbs will be joining us back from Iceland, and I'm sure he'll tell us all about his visits to perhaps certain museums. And until then, thank you for joining me, Mr. Whitaker.
You are, as ever, very welcome.
And the Luffmeister. Thank you, sir.
Chaps. Yep, cheers, chaps.
Always a pleasure, mate. And once again, thank you one and all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Take care, and we will speak to you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.